Hello, could you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So should we begin or wait for some more time for the students to join? Shall I start or wait for a couple of more minutes? Hello. Could you see the slides, na? Slides
Yes.
are fine.
They are visible.
Yes,
Oh, good. Okay, so good afternoon. Let me begin. So we started, exploring the ESR spectroscopy, and we had just only one class so far. And I have just made one small slide over here to recapitulate the things what we have already talked about. So essentially, what we have said, we said that EPR and NMR, these two are, complementary to each other. There are certain things which are matching, there are certain things which are diagonally opposite. For example, as I said that EPR is strictly for the paramagnetic molecules, and NMR is not necessarily strictly for the diamagnetic molecule, but it is preferably for the diamagnetic. Of course, you can check NMR for the paramagnetic molecules as well. And second point what we have talked about, that both are dealing with the spin. In one case it is electron spin, in other case it is the nuclear spin. Now NMR is rather independent because it does not depend on the electron spin. It only talks about the nuclear spin, and there depending on the electronic environment, your chemical shift varies here and there. And that tells us mostly about the molecular structure. The molecular structure means how the molecule looks like from the external point of view. In terms of its bond angles, it's the bonding, etc., etc. So we will not get all the bonding details, but you will be getting how the molecule would look like. But EPR, already we have talked about, which is again dependent on the nuclear spin, unlike NMR, because the electron spin which interacts with the nuclear spin in each and every occasion. So we cannot avoid nuclear spin when we deal with the EPR, but that is not true for NMR. And EPR would never give you any information about how the molecule would look like, but it will tell you the electronic structural aspects. That means based on the symmetry, based on the distortion, and that would be very nicely manifested by the EPR profile. We would be learning it slowly, all those things. And the splitting pattern we know, so since EPR also deals with the nuclear spin splitting and all sort of thing, and what we see experimentally, that's a reflection of the collective event. The collective event means that you have to deal with both electron spin and nuclear spin, and the collective thing which is being reflected through the spectral profile. It's not that you will be getting separately the electron spin based item and nuclear spin based item. So you will be getting the resultant point. So that's why we need to understand how the splitting pattern takes place, and we already know the splitting profile is just diagonally opposite because of the fact of what you already know, that your energy content of the transitions, where Ms, in the beta part, in case of electron it is negative, in case of proton it is positive. So the overall term for electronic based Ms, electron spin, it will be actually positive, this one. So negative would be the lower part and positive will be the higher part. But in the nuclear spin, since E of proton is positive, so the negative term would remain. So naturally, the positive Mi, if I consider Mi instead of Ms, that will be your lower part, lower energy containing state, and the negative one would be the higher energy containing state. So these two even, they're diagonally opposite to each other. So we have to keep that thing in mind. So after that, we try to understand that what kind of EPR instruments we should deal with and what are the components involved. And I have shown you one picture how the EPR instrument looks like. It's a beautiful looking item, and but a very simple item. Item wise very simple, but price wise is not that simple. As I told you, it cost around minimum 4 crores. It could be manifold higher than that depending on what instrument you are using. But the whatever instrument it could be, it has the two distinct component. One is the magnet and the electromagnet, not the permanent magnet. Okay. And the second part is the frequency generator, right? So, and then there will be a detector and all sort of trivial items are there. Now we know that the electron spin needs to be, degeneracy of electron spin needs to be, lifted up, and that could be done by the application of magnetic field. So the Ms plus minus will be splitted, and you should expect the transition. And there we mentioned one point, how to record the spectrum. So there are two ways to do it. So you have two variables, right? One is h nu, that is the frequency generator, and other one is the magnetic field. So depending on the magnetic field, what magnetic field you are applying, your separation between the energy state would be increasing or decreasing. It's a direct function of the applied magnetic field. Now, accordingly, you have to apply the frequency so the synchronization takes place between the splitting energy or splitted energy and the applied frequency. So the resonance would take place. And eventually it is an absorption spectroscopy. So it will absorb, it will go to the excited state, and based on the relaxation process, another term comes over here, that sometimes relaxation process is very fast, so immediately it relaxes the excess energy and comes down to the ground state, that means the normal state, and we could measure that thing. But the problem is if it is too fast, and then instrument cannot detect it, because EPR time scale is 10 to the power minus 8 seconds. Now if it relaxes faster than 10 to the minus 8, how come the instrument would detect? It cannot detect. But if it comes within that time frame, then instrument will detect. Now if it is too fast, that means most of the cases we cannot handle it. So we have talked about the possible relaxation events, and there we have said that spin lattice relaxation and spin-spin interaction, right? Relaxation. And we have already talked about that how to tune this relaxation process for our own benefit, so that eventually we can have a better resolution and the spectrum what we are actually looking for. So to do so, essentially we have to record the things at low temperature. That is one of the standard events. We have to always keep it in mind. Unlike NMR, most of the times you do it at room temperature, because relaxation is not so serious over there. So since you do it at room temperature, naturally it is less expensive. But EPR, normally we do it at low temperature. Low means it's not the simple low, it's the liquid nitrogen, that means 77 K, expensive. But if the relaxation process in many occasions it is faster, particularly for the metal complexes, it is even faster than what one would anticipate out of the liquid nitrogen temperature, then you need to go for liquid helium temperature, very expensive. You can go down to the maximum possible low temperature, say 4K, right? So one of the options, and that is the primary options, to cool it down. Okay, and the second option is try to use the diluted solution, so that you can spin polarization effect, you can minimize it. As we have already talked about that the induced magnetization or magnetism over there, which is inversely proportional to the distance between the two magnetic centers in terms of third order, 1 by r cube, h equal to 1 by r cube, proportional to. So if you increase the distance, then threefold more dilutions takes place in terms of magnetization. So that's why diluted solution could be used for your EPR measurement, not concentrated. But NMR is reverse. NMR, if you can use diluted solution, your spectral profile will look better. So, but the one important point is here, you must remember that point, that when you will be dealing with organic compounds, actually two types of compounds normally we deal with. Nah? One is the organic, other one is inorganic, right? And mostly our compounds are soluble in at least one of the solvents, whatever you talk about. And once we deal with the solutions spectrum for EPR measurement, we have to be very careful that the solvent should not absorb microwave. If solvent absorbs microwave, then you don't know that what signal you are getting. You are getting out of the bulk solvent or out of your compound. The whole thing would be misleading. For example, water cannot be considered as one of the good solvents. Okay, it can absorb. So, but if your compound is soluble only in water, then what are the options you have in hand? You have to use a different kind of cell, what is called flax cell. That means where you will have, the solvent exposure is very less. Mostly your compound will be there. So that kind of options are there, but those are all specialized options. Under normal circumstances, one should avoid water as a solvent. The best solvent, what people know, is a THF, which doesn't absorb at all. You can use toluene, you can use dichloromethane, one of the finest solvent, and acetonitrile. But remember, in order the relaxation process to handle, you have to use a glassy material. The glassy material means the solvent should freeze within the temperature range, whatever you would be considering, either liquid nitrogen or helium, it would become. And then you will be a glass. So, it's called the liquid glass. So it will have a solid state behavior. The solvent will behave like a solid, like the glass. So the glassy medium is the best medium for EPR measurement, where your relaxation process is expected to be minimum, is expected, within the code. And you will have a much better resolution over there. Okay, resolution is very important in EPR. I'll tell you why later on. And the second point, if your compound does not go into any solution, then how to handle it? You can measure the EPR in the solid state, no problem. But the solid state EPR, even at low temperature, what will happen? The splitting pattern, EPR, the splitting pattern is very important. The splitting pattern won't be very good. For example, you can have a splitting pattern like this, right? I've already shown this representative example. So many lines are there, and they are very significant in order to understand the electronic structural aspects and how it is happening, why it is happening, all sort of things. The splitting pattern won't be very good in solid. Rather, you will be getting a kind of isotropic signal. That means one signal like this, and all the what you call hyperfine, super hyperfine splitting would be buried inside that envelope. So then that particular spectrum won't be very useful. It will give you only the impression your compound is paramagnetic, but it won't give you any further information. But we want to have many such information out of the spectrum. So we need to have a better splitting. So solid, only problem is that you can control your relaxation timing process, because if you solid, if you take that, then vibrational thing would be better control than solution. But the splitting is a problem. So the alternate option is to use the solid solution. Solid solution means you have to take host guest technique. Host guest technique, already I have already talked about it, that you can have a good host, that should be the diamagnetic host, and the diamagnetic host, in that you can put the paramagnetic compound. So host, the ratio would be around 1:200. That means 200 would be the diamagnetic part and 100 would be your paramagnetic part. That means very diluted solid, and there you can have the better resolution. All the hyperfine, super hyperfine signals would be resolved well, and you can also control the relaxation process, particularly the spin relaxation, and as well as the spin lattice relaxation thing. But here the additional problem is to find a good host. You look at that host, means it should have been the same geometry. You can see in both the cases that it is iridium 4d5, platinum 4d6. So S equal to 0, both are heavier metals, so no question of high spin, all low spin. And you can have S equal to half, that means doublet state, and octahedral geometry, same ligand, same metal oxidation state, and same counter anion. Only the one is paramagnetic, other is direct. This is the best host possible. Okay. So similarly, you can choose certain kind of host for certain molecule, but it's not a very easy task to find the suitable host. That's the restrictions. So in general, let me put it this way: it is better to dissolve the compound, if possible, to either one solvent or in a mixed solvent, and try to record the spectrum at very low temperature. Okay. And if your compound does not go into any solvent, then you simply record it and say your compound is paramagnetic, but you cannot extract any further information because of the lack of resolution. That is the only way we can handle the things. And you know that EPR, when we are talking about the unpaired electron, it is deeply connected to the magnetism. So once your compound is paramagnetic, then to have a better understanding and perceptions of the molecular physical behavior, not chemical behavior, physical behavior, you need to do both the things parallelly. At one extent, you have to do the magnetism, and you can record the magnetic feature at variable temperature, starting from room temperature. You can again go down to 4K by using liquid helium. So you will see that how the paramagnetic centers are behaving, how they are interacting, whether they are interacting in a cooperative fashion, either antiferromagnetically or ferromagnetically or ferrimagnetically, whatever it is, how they are behaving. And that you can correlate with the spectral profile as a function of temperature, what we call the VT, variable temperature EPR spectroscopy. Or in case of magnetism, we call the SQUID measurement, the superconducting measurement system. Okay. And then you can correlate the magnetic feature of the molecule, and the complementary one is the EPR feature. So they are complementary to each other. So it's a much more complex system rather than unlike your NMR thing. NMR is a very friendly item. EPR is friendly, provided you understand the things in a better way. So you have to always do the magnetic part and then EPR part. So they cannot individually sustain. They can sustain individually when you are unable to record both the things. Otherwise, it is desirable and sometimes it is mandatory to check both the things parallelly so that you can have better confidence about the individual results as well. So now, since I said that resolution is very important, now once I talk about resolution, why it is important, that you can get one line spectrum, which is basically a stupid kind of thing. So you will be getting only information that EPR is active, molecule is EPR active, but nothing more than that. So the resolution with respect to hyperfine and super hyperfine. Now, when I talk about the hyperfine, first to understand hyperfine, we are essentially talking about the nuclear spin and electronic spins interactions. Now, it might happen the atom which carries the unpaired spin, electron spin, that atom itself having the nucleus which is having active center. That means the net spin is there. Nuclear spin could be zero, like electron spin. It could be your integral. It could be your half integral, right? So if it happens that electron spin and nuclear spin both are the part of the same atom, then the splitting what you will be getting, that is called hyperfine splitting. Now on top of the hyperfine splitting, you can have any nearby atom, okay, which is having also electronic nuclear spin, and then these would interact with the nuclear spin of the nearby atom. That will give you the further splitting, and that is called super hyperfine. It might happen that the atom carrying the unpaired electron could be metal, could be organic unit. Atom carrying the unpaired electron, but that atom does not have any effective nuclear spin. That means I equal to 0. In that case, you will be missing hyperfine line. But if it happens that the nearby atom means bonded atoms, not non-covalent interaction. I'm talking about covalently bonded atom having the unpaired, having the nuclear spin. So it will give you directly super hyperfine. So hyperfine and super hyperfine, you can get both, or you can get only hyperfine, or you can get only super hyperfine. Now you could argue in a different way that how do I differentiate it? Yeah, that's, you have to understand very clearly whether the same atom carrying both or not. If it carrying both, that means the hyperfine and followed by super hyperfine if it is. If it does not carry both, then you have to have the super hyperfine. But the point of concern is, now I will talk about the splitting parameter. That means the how much interaction is, it tells you whether it's a hyperfine line or super hyperfine. Hyperfine line, the interaction is naturally stronger than the super hyperfine. The hyperfine interaction taking place within the same atom, so they are very close to each other. Super hyperfine, the distance is more, so the interaction profile or the strength would be less, and that would be reflected immediately as a function of your hyperfine constant. Okay, so let us take this case that is in a very generic sense I'm talking about here. You have one unpaired electron, and then ms is equal to plus minus 1, and that gives you the splitting, and then your lower energy would be, energy is essentially, you know, that G beta ms h. So if we consider ms equal to minus half, that means minus half G beta h, and this one would be plus half G beta h, and the gap is G beta h. This amount of frequency you need to inject into the system to get the EPR spectrum. Now what happens, hypothetically, that atom having S equal to half, which is connected to your another atom in a covalent fashion, not non-covalent fashion, which is having I equal to 1. I'm talking about here stated super hyperfine. Or it could be that this atom carrying one unpaired electron, and it has also your nuclear spin, say I equal to 1. If I consider one molecule, say pyridine, okay, nitrogen is there. Okay, now if I inject one electron into the pyridine system, that means pyridine is a S equal to 0 closed cell system. So we can get a radical on nitrogen center, radical strictly on the nitrogen, and the same nitrogen is carrying I equal to 1. We know that, right? Or you can have a situation on the super hyperfine, whatever it is. So this electron will interact with this nuclear spin. And as a result, what will happen? Now you will have the splitting due to the I factor. Now I equal to 1 means mi equal to plus minus 1, so 1 0 minus 1, all of you know. Now the second question comes, which one would be the ground term? Already we have talked about it, that the plus 1 would be the ground term, then 1 0 minus 1 and excited state would be the reverse, mi minus 1 0 1. And then we are dealing with the resultant situation. For example, resultant situation means the transition will take place within the resultant splitted energy states by following the standard selection rule. The selection rule says very clearly that delta A ms, that if the transition takes place within the electronic state and hypothetically there is no interaction between your electron and nucleus spin, then this will be plus minus 1. On the other hand, if you consider the nuclear based transitions, so delta I mi should be your 0. So that means transition will take place from 1 to 1, 0 to 0, and minus 1 to minus 1. Right? So the next slide, before going to the next slide, let me put it this way, that as I said, that hyperfine and super hyperfine, those splitting you will be getting only when if your unpaired electron is associated with a particular nucleus or nuclei carrying effective nuclear spin. That is very important. So that could be calculated based on the quadruple moment and all sort of things. So you can get it through any literature. So there are 3 types of atoms what we can consider. One is where nucleus spin is 0. So nucleus spin 0 means that even number of protons and even number of neutrons is there, like carbon 12, remember. Then helium, oxygen 16, remember 16. Okay. And here 8 plus 8, 2 plus 2, that means even number of protons and neutrons are equal to 0, straight away. Or other extreme is that you have even number of mass, but odd number of proton and neutron, but equal. For example, that if you take 2H, then 1 plus 1, 14 nitrogen, 7 plus 7. That means odd number of proton and electron, but your even number of mass. And similarly for boron, and you see that there your I value is the integral value, right? 1, 3, 5, so many things possible. And similarly, if you take other extreme, where the half integral would be coming, there your mass is odd instead of even in the previous 2 occasions, and here one will be odd, other will be even. For example, if you consider proton, so there is no one, so only one, and then nitrogen 15, 7 plus 8, oxygen 17, also your 8 plus 9. And there you can see the half integral values, half, 5 by 2, etc., etc. So you have to keep it in mind. And if you see the literature, you see nucleus spin associated with all the atoms. All the atoms you will be getting. I'm just taking a couple of examples. You see that proton, you have mass 1, mass 2, and then you can have half spin and 1 spin, I. And but you have to be very careful about the abundance. That 1 spin for deuterium, that is 2H, and you see that is a negligible quantity, availability. But here the almost 100% is the normal proton, so it is always available in our molecules. Nah? Similarly, carbon 12 is basically inactive. Nucleus I'm talking about, absolutely inactive because 6 plus 6. But carbon 13, which is your half, I equal to half. But again, you can see the abundance, 1%. And that's why you can remember that NMR, if you take carbon 13, you need to take a very concentrated solution, and even after that you will be getting full of noises or very small speed because abundance is too low. Okay, but carbon 12 abundance is close to 100%. Similarly, nitrogen having 2 different kind of nuclei, 14 and 15. 14 is 1 naturally, and 15 is half, but 15 abundance is much lesser than the 14. So you can take all other nuclei. For example, phosphorus is one of the important components in our ligand systems, organic molecules. Phosphorus is 100%, 31 it is, so half spin. So you will never miss phosphorus signal. So anyway, so if I take the simplest example, then you will understand the hyperparameter splitting very nicely. So let us proton case, as we are talking about, that electron spin would be splitted minus half plus half, and then you will have, I equal to half over here. So I equal to half means that each line will be further splitted into two lines. Order is different, plus half, minus half, plus half. And the total energy, now we have to talk about the resultant energy. When the splitting is there, that means electron is getting diffused onto the nucleus. And which extent they are diffusing, which extent they are interacting, that depends on many factors. One of the factors, the size of the atoms which are under consideration. Okay, that is very important. Then you have to also take into account the spin orbit coupling and all sort of things. So what will happen? The total energy or resultant energy would be G beta MSH. That is your, you can calculate from here, G beta MSH plus the mode of interaction between MS and MI along with the hyperfine coupling constant A. Now, if we look at that, when this electronic state is reacting with the nuclear state over here, and that is always happening, then your energy would be electronic state's energy minus half G beta H plus A into MS and MI, so minus 1/4. Similarly, in each case, you can calculate the energy, right? And then transition would take place only between the MI state, because that is the resultant state, and the selection rule is delta MI equal to 0. And if there is no MI state available, then it will take place within the MS state, that is plus minus 1. Okay, so this A actually defines the interaction mode, how strong the interaction between the unpaired electron and the associated nuclear spin, either at the same atom or nearby atom, in which it could reach and it could interact. Okay, and that's why I said the A would be always larger under hyperfine coupling mode, and A would be always lesser under super hyperfine coupling mode. The super hyperfine is taking between the two different nuclei. As a result, the distance matter, mode of interaction would be less effective compared to the same atom having both the things together. So if I consider the transitions, the transition would be, say, this is D, A to D, because delta Mi equal to 0, or it could be your B to C. So if I calculate the energy of D, the next slide you will see that this is D minus A. If I do all these things, then your plus minus case, this is the value of the E1 and first transitions, right? And similarly, if I consider the line 2, that means your C to B from here to here, that means this minus this. So it will be plus, it will be minus then. And then this is the energy for the line 2, E2. So there are two lines. So this is E1, this is E2. So E1 energy is this one, E2 energy is this one. Now if you minus these two, that means this one minus this one. So that will give you the A. So A is a difference between the two signals originated via the electron and proton interactions, and A is in terms of the magnetic field, whatever the Gauss or Tesla you call it. So A would define the extent of interactions between the electron spin and the nucleus spin. So how many such lines you should expect out of a particular electronic system? Okay, that depends on a very simple your equation 2Ni plus 1. N means number of equivalent. That is very important. Number of equivalent atoms, and I means the spin of that atom. Sorry, nuclear spin of that atom plus one. Now, if you have say 2-3 different atom or centers which are interacting, then you have to have, for example, 2Ni plus 1 into 2Ni. Say you put one atom, then 2 atom, then 3 atom, and then 4 atom. And by that way, you can get multiple number of hyperpine lines. The minimum one would be the 2 lines and maximum endless, depending on how many nuclei you are considering around that particular electron or electrons. So we will learn it now slowly. But you have to keep it in mind. This is the minimum equation one could think about. For example, if your N equal to 1, I equal to half, that means you can have the 2 lines. The previous case, what I said, 1H. If you take nitrogen radical, for example, then nitrogen radical, then I equal to 14 nitrogen, I equal to 1. And if it is only one nuclei equivalent, then you will have 2 into 1 plus 1, 3 lines. So it will be split into 3 lines. So similarly, it can continue. Okay. And if you have 2-3 different kinds of nuclei and different kinds of I, or same kind of I but the different kind of nuclei, then you will have a much more lines. Okay, in terms of either hyperpine or only super hyperpine or a combined hyperpine super hyperpine interactions. Okay. Now this is the case where you understand what I said just now. Now 2Ni plus 1. That is the total number of lines one could expect out of it. Now let us consider N equal to 1, say nitrogen. And if I consider there is no interactions, only say one atom where there is no nuclear spin, and one electron is residing on any atom, either metal or your organic molecule having 1 unpaired electron, then you will be getting one line. Okay, it's a derivative curve. Already we talked about. We don't deal with the absorption curve, unlike NMR. Here we deal with the derivative curve. Why do you derivative curve? Because to understand better resolution about the hyperpine, super hyperpine interactions. So here you will be having one line. Now what happens? You have to understand one thing. That if your unpaired electron is on the ligand system, we call it, or organic molecule, we call it radical, free radical. Free radical in the sense that electron can revolve or can diffuse throughout the whole molecule and no symmetry constant would come into the picture. So you will not get any splitting out of the symmetry of the molecule. But if your ligand is on a unpaired electron is residing on a metal ion, and metal ions in a particular compound is essentially residing in a particular geometry, either octahedral, tetrahedral, square planar, distorted octahedral, distorted this, distorted that. So the symmetry of that molecule would be impacted on the EPR profile. Then you will have further splitting over there, not because of hyperpine, because of super hyperpine, but because of the symmetry related distortions. If EPR is so sensitive, it will give you beautiful, distortion in terms of its profile. From the idealized single line spectrum, you'll be getting multiple line spectrum. So one should not be confused that these multiple lines arising due to hyperpine, super hyperpine. Now each of the multiple lines, what you will be getting out of your distortion impact, that will be further splitted because of the super hyperpine or hyperpine splitting. We'll discuss it all later on. Now let us consider only the simple organic molecule. Then you have, say, that one particular electron, I equal to half, that 1H if I consider. 1H, of course it's not organic, but situation is the same. So 1H, that means 2 into 1 into half plus 1, so 2 lines. So one line is now getting splitted into 2 lines. Now if it happens that is I equal to 1 instead of half, then it will be 3 lines, right? Now I equal to 3 by 2 if I take, okay, for example, copper nucleus spin is 3 by 2. Already we know it, right? And then what will happen? The one line will be split into the 4 lines. Is it not looking beautiful? Yes, I like it. Now if you take otherwise, that I equal to half like this, but there are 2 equivalent I equal to half in a molecule. Then through this, energy profile, we can tell you that 2 into half plus 1. So essentially 3 lines. So 3 lines you see that could be originated out of I equal to 1 but 1, n equal to 1, or it could be originated from 2i, But you remember again that these two could be easily differentiated based on their intensity ratio. So we also need to know how to calculate the intensity ratio. So 3 lines, in one case you have considered 3 lines based on 1 nuclei with I equal to 1. Of course, 1 unpaired electron is certainly there. Unpaired electron plus 1 nuclei I equal to 1, single nuclei. The single nucleus with 1 unpaired electron I equal to 1, so gives you 3 lines. Now, if you consider the otherwise, the 2 I equal to half equivalent nuclei with 1 unpaired electron, that would also give you the 3 lines. But the intensity ratio would be different. Why it is so, we'll discuss it. Now, if you have a situation, the 3 equivalent I equal to half, then you can have, putting this over here, 3 into half, so 4 lines. Now, 4 equivalent with I equal to 1, so 4, 1, that means 9 lines. You see the beautiful 9 lines coming up over here. Okay. Now, in each case, if I consider, say, I equal to half, as I said, for 0 it will be 1, for 1 it will be 2 lines, for 2 it is 3 lines, for 3 it is 4 lines, for 6 it is 7 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines, which is very easy to understand. But the problem is, it's not a problem, but the fact is that when it is more than 1 line, that means 2 onwards, you have to have a particular ratio of intensity of the line. And this is the standard ratio of intensity. Okay, there is, it is just like a simple picture. Okay, there won't be any difference. For organic molecules particularly, EPR spectral profile is so nice, there is no way to miss it or misunderstand it. Okay, you can simulate it the way it is being appeared. I'll give you, I'll explain it how it is like this. Similarly, it will look like this. You see the 2 lines, 1:1, 1:2, 2:1, 1:2. All sort of things are being reflected so like. For example, you see that 1:2:1. You look at 1:2:1. Then 1:3:3:1. I guess so. That will be n equal to 3. N equal to 3 means your half. That means 2 into 3 into half plus 4 lines. Okay, and there 1:3:3:1 ratio. Similarly, you have a different ratios and line all these things. It will be just like a crystal clear, beautiful picture. Now, if you take n equal to 0 to 6 and I equal to 1, using the same equation, let me put it this way, that I equal to 1 and total number of equivalent, I'm talking about equivalent nuclei is 6. That means 2 into 6 into 1 plus 1, 13 lines. You see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Exactly same number. You will get it. And you see the ratio, awful, so nasty. Look at ratio. It looks wise very good, but you cannot manually, calculate this ratio. Why it is not so? You will know it now. So it is always better, and this is the way one could do it. The program is available. You can get the simulated spectrum, and simulated spectrum when you will be getting, that is not experimentally observed spectrum, that is the theoretical spectrum. And you will see if your system is good, if your instrument is good, if your resolution is good, that simulated one and the experimental one will just synchronize in 1:1 fashion. Exactly the same thing will be getting. and then computer will tell you what will be the ratio, and you can compare with any textbook material. You will see exactly you are getting that. Now there is a point over here. Point is, I said that the resolution of your spectrum is very important. The resolution of the spectrum, it is very easy to tell to have the best possible resolution, but for that you need the best possible molecule, best possible instrument, and best possible conditions. So that's why I said that you can have X band DPR, K band DPR, Q band DPR, W band DPR. You must have noticed that your from X band to W band, essentially it varies the splitting pattern from here to like this. So once it is like this, that means you will have so many hyperband, super hyperband coupling would be would be exposed so nicely, and that will be reflected in the resolution pattern, and also the conditions. If you go to 4K, where your relaxation process is the minimum, and there you can have a much better results spectral profile. So I'm talking about ideally what should happen. Now, as I said to you, that in organic chemistry is very important, but spectroscopy wise, I always tell that that is the ideal molecule to follow it. The reason is it is simple, and because of simple, so you get the best looking items. But once you deal with the metal complexes, oh, it's a nasty thing. Most of the cases, but there are cases where you also get beautiful profile, depending on if you could set the conditions properly in terms of instrumentations, in terms of the solvent setup, temperature setup, so on and so forth. Okay, so it looks complex, but it can be made simple if you can manage to have the best possible conditions, and then you will see it will match nicely with the simulated scenario. So this is how you could see the spectrum for in every case that you can see n equal to 6. N equal to 6 means this one. This is the ratio profile and 13 lines, and you look at the 13 lines, you could count it. It looks beautiful, no? You see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, this is the point. The other two are not being properly resolved over here. So that is the point always we face in a multi-line systems. Smaller case, it is resolved so nicely. In spite of using the textbook item, where they have used the best possible instrument, best possible conditions, and best possible molecule, okay, still they could manage to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 2 lines are missing, or it is probably hidden somewhere in between. So what I am trying to mean, even NMR, you must have noticed in many conditions you do not get the NMR the way you expect it to have. For example, if you record the NMR of ethanol solvent or NMR of methanol solvent, for example, you'll be getting a crystal clear NMR which matches with the number of peaks, chemical shift, etc., etc. But there are many NMR, many molecules, organic molecule, inorganic or organic, whatever you consider. You will see the NMR is very complicated. Okay, so similarly here you can have a better resolution, well-resolved spectrum, and you can have also the spectrum which does not reflect all the necessary things in a better way. That is also possible. But once you practice with it, slowly you will understand that nothing to be worried much. As long as it is coming closer to that, we are happy. And if it gives you the calculated one in a proper way, fine. Otherwise, if it doesn't give, we have the common standard language. It did not resolve properly. What to do? Okay, the conditional molecule is not such to have the best possible resolution. Now, before going into complicated inorganic molecules, let us first stick to organic molecules where we can have a better understanding and perception. Okay. Now look at this methyl radical. Now this methyl radical, whatever I said so far, many points are involved over here. One is the one unpaired electron is there. An unpaired electron is particularly localized on the carbon center, and this carbon is covalently bonded with the 3 proton center. Covalently means the direct interaction is there between the carbon and the hydrogen. As a result, this unpaired electron will have enough opportunity to interact with the nucleus of the proton of these hydrogen centers, okay, at a distance of hardly 1 point some angstrom. Okay, the distance is around 1 point some angstrom. So they are very close to each other, so they can interact, and they can fully delocalized onto the nuclear center for possible interactions. Now here we have to understand that whether all 3 protons are equivalent. Yes, for methane wise, all 3 protons are equivalent. So the unpaired electron cannot differentiate. So it will look at all the 3 protons are same. That means each proton having I equal to half, so it will consider as a 3 by 2, not half into half into half and also. The straightway 3 into half by 3 by 2. That means you have 2Ni plus 1 into 2Mi plus 1 into 2Z plus 1. That way you can calculate the total number of lines, or you calculate 2n, you can multiply it to the equivalent number. So here you have to, because otherwise the number would be different. Now I can think whatever way I love to think, but I have to have the experimental support in favor of that. Now I consider here in a very logical way that all 3 protons are equivalent. Then you should expect to have only 4 lines. Am I right? Okay. Now experimentally you get 4 lines. So that corroborates the fact that all protons are equivalent, right? Because science, you cannot put your imagination into the science. You have to have the experimental imagination is needed, but it has to be supported by the experimental evidences, right? Now here we are talking about the ESR. So experimental evidence is also suggesting 4 lines, right? And then we need to understand how the 4 lines could be generated. Very simple. Already we have talked about. The MS would be split into minus half into plus half, and then the impact of Mi would come, and Mi 3 by 2. Mi 3 by 2 means total 4 lines, and 3 by 2 means I equal to 3 by 2. Mi would be plus minus 3 by 2. Now you see that this one is being now splitted between minus 3 by 2 to plus 3 by 2, and this one also minus 3 by 2 to plus 3 by 2. Only the energy order is different. Now you can have transition by following the selection rule. Delta Mi equal to 0, not delta Ms, because delta Ms does not arise anymore, because already the interactions have taken place. So we have to go into the resultant diagram, and then from here to here, from here to here, from minus up to minus up, it should be same. Then I delta Mi equal to 0, then minus 3 by 2 to minus 3 by 2. Okay, and it gives you 4 lines. Now I said you that intensity is very important, but this is the simple case. You can understand the intensity. But if you take a bigger molecule, you will be either getting bored. You can do so, nothing is impossible, but the problem is you will be getting bored. And second point is, why should I waste my time in doing so? When the program is available, program would give you all the results. So we should not waste our time for doing unnecessary things, right? Because we understand the background, how the intensity factor develops. But you should know it for a smaller case where you can do it simply by mathematics. For example, here if you see the ratio 1:3:3:1. Now you have to understand in terms of the resultant nuclear spin, because that is the place where the transition takes place. This is the resultant case, not this one. So if you have I 3 by 2, I 3 by 2 is the maximum, I minus 3 by 2 is the other end maximum, and then half and half. And then you have to consider how many nuclei you have considered over here. Naturally, the 3 equivalent nuclei. Okay, so you have 3 nuclei, each having half, half, half. Then how do I get, and how many ways I get chi by 2, how many ways I get minus chi by 2, how many ways I get half and minus half. So naturally, chi by 2 out of chi half you can get in one way, and minus chi by 2 you can get by the reverse way. Okay, that means permutation, combination, or whatever you do it, you will be getting 1, 1. But half out of chi 1 I have, you can get by chi ways. You can see one resultant would be up or down, here and here, right? So 3 ways you can get half out of chi I equal to half setup. Similarly, over here, 3 ways you can get it. So your ratio would be 1:3:3:1. So that is exactly being reflected. Now, if you do the simulated spectrum, you will be seeing it is just 1:1 overlapping. There is no deviation. Okay, but it's a simple case, so one can do it the way we prefer to do it, but not for a bigger system. We should not go. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind, as I said, that what kind of instrument you are using, the spectral resolution depends on that. Now, here you have used the routing instrument, X-band instrument, which is costing 4 crore. Okay, when I'm talking about the money I'm talking about is because of the fact every chemist, those who are dealing with the your EPS spectroscopy, or physicist or physical chemist, they always prefer to use the very high field EPS spectrum to get the better resolution. And high field EPS spectrum means, it will be costing 200 crore, 300 crore, 400 crore. Okay, poor country like India, forget it. Huh? So anyway, so if you see this thing, you are getting crystal clear line, and you don't see much noise over here. No? It's more or less straight line. Now, if you record the same spectrum using very powerful machine, then you will be getting that each 4 lines are being splitted into 2. Small line you are seeing are being splitted into 2. The question is, now if you are physicist, you need to understand. As a chemist, we don't need it. We need only the 4 lines. But if I am interested in understanding the EPR in a better way, because this is not the molecule to spend a lot of time, this is for understanding. But if you have one unknown molecule where there are a lot of interest to understand their electronic structure aspect, then you need to consider or concentrate on each and every tiny item. Then only you will be getting the better perceptions of that spectroscopic features. Now, this is one of the cases where one should try to develop the impression how it could be. Okay, so once you get this small line, question comes from where it is coming, because your unpaired electron is on carbon, and then it is interacting with the covalently linked protons, and that's why you are getting 4 line. But remember, like NMR, okay, then carbon, what we consider that it is the inactive nuclear spin, having inactive nuclear spin, because mostly it is carbon 12. But 1% carbon 13 is always with carbon 2, always. And this 1% having your half spin, right? So that means half spin means each of the lines 2ni+1. So 1 carbon, 2 into 1 into half plus 1. That means every line will be split into 2. But if it's splitted, then your intensity would be 100 times less than your, with 1%, than your original spectrum. And that is why you see the small peak over here. And this small peak, actually, it is not important from a variety of reasons, but it is important from very understanding of the physical aspects of the molecules. Okay, and most of the cases, if your instrument is not good, that is, if it is a high resolution instrument, you will never get it. You will get it either as a straight line or as a noise. Okay, but if you are interested, you can also figure it out about the noise by expanding this along the y-axis, or by using the expensive high field APR machine. Now, if you go for ethanol instead of ethyl radical. So ethyl radical, you see that these two carbon are not equivalent now, right? So these two carbons are different. So your equation would be 2Ni plus 1, 2Mi plus 1. So Ni means these two hydrogens are equivalent, these three hydrogens are equivalent, right? And your unpaired electron is here. And that means 2 into 2 into 2 into half plus 1, 3. And 2 into 3 into half plus 1, that is 4. That means total 12 lines will be getting. So basically what will happen, the 3 lines will be splitted further into 4 lines. And that is exactly been happening if you look at the color wise. Okay, 4 colors, different colors. So 3 into 4. So total 12 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines are there. And if you see that baseline is not a straight line in the like in the previous case. This case it is perfectly straight line because the resolution was not good. And here you could see the small carbon peak. This resolution is far better, but here it is somewhere in between. So the carbon 13 peaks in somewhere you could get like a noise. So nobody put much emphasis to resolve it further. But if anybody is interested, he or she can look into it in a separate sense. Okay. Now let us take a few more examples. There are some variations. So I have picked up the molecules which could expose us to have a better variations. Okay. Now you look at this molecule, the benzene radical. Now benzene, everybody knows, you have just pumped in one electron inside that and you get a radical. Now here you should get 1 line spectrum. Instead of that, you are getting basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 line spectrum. Why you are getting 7 line spectrum? Because the protons are there. These are all covalently interacted, and this electron is not far away from the carbon center. And that's why this proton, that means 2 into 6 into half plus 1, 7 lines with a particular ratio you are getting. No problem. Simple. Here if you come, you see that if I consider that 1 hydroxyethyl radical, this is CH3 group, then this unpaired electron, this is directly bonded. So that gives you 2 lines. Okay. And this is 1 atom away from the electron center. That means carbon and then CH3. So these 3 CH3 are equivalent. So that gives you 4. So 4 into 2, that means 8 lines. Resolution, this is not a well dissolved spectrum in terms of the intensity, but we can get, you see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. Now there is one more issue is there. One has to understand, and that is how the things are becoming complicated. And you can have some kind of patience in mind in dealing with EPR to accept the fact. Okay, and one should not be bogged into the fact of why it is not coming like this. It should be like this. It should not be like this. No, then you cannot deal with the EPR event. You have to be very, very patientful, and you need to accept. And that is how the scope is there. That you have to explain the fact based on the available spectral profile and the resolution. What is ideally possible and what has come, those two are different even. What it has appeared, you have to take it with a pinch of salt if necessary. For example, here 8 lines I could get it very clearly, and that could explain that this portion is interactive. That means this electron is interactive with this portion, but another hydrogen is here, which is almost the equal distance, like carbon and CH3. This is carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, right? So somehow this interaction, this mode of interaction is not operational over here. It should have been, and in that case, you could have got 16 lines spectrum. Now, one could argue that that interaction is not very prominent. Why it is not prominent? That question is an open question. Okay. Or one could argue that I do not know the exact resolution of this instrument. The instrument is not enough to resolve the weak interaction in that right-hand side direction. So what I'm trying to essentially mean that if I consider that this carbon center is equally active, around the molecule, then it should have given us at least 16 lines. But we are getting 8 lines. Now one could say, I can explain 8 lines through this direction. I can explain 8 lines. No, I cannot explain 8 lines in this direction. If I only follow this direction, then 2 into 2, 4 lines, right? But in this direction, 8 lines. That means our interpretation is based on the available data, because you cannot create the data. No? Data is the fact based on your molecule. So whatever the data you have, which essentially suggests that this electron, at least in the solution phase, that solution phase means you cannot consider the exact structure. No? Exact structure you will be getting only in the solid state, but solid state resolution again is not good, whatever the temperature you consider. So solution state spectrum means molecule is on the vibrational mode. Okay, of course it is not as in the gaseous state, but it is still in the motion is there. Okay, that's why your so many other factors coming into the picture. But number of lines tells us very clearly that this particular unit is more active as far as the EPR is concerned rather than this unit. Okay, but this you cannot avoid. This is a direct bond. It has to take place. Now the question is, only this one, or both are active. But it suggests that this part is active. Now you see, this is very interesting molecule from that angle. If you look at this molecule, your radical is here. Now this molecule is so nicely resolved. I like this molecule. You may like also this molecule once I explain it. It gives you essentially 3 lines, and each lines are being splitted in a multiple lines, sublines. Now, if it is a 3 lines, I can easily understand because the electron is here, and the small thing, this is because of the carbon 13. So I'm not worried about the carbon 13. Carbon 13, I got a much better explanation over here. Okay, so I do not want to, I know carbon 13 can happen. It can happen in a better way or in a noisy way. So I have assumed this is a noisy way. I'm not a physicist, so I don't bother much at this point. So this carbon radical, now these 2 hydrogens are directly bonded, so it will give you triplet. 2 into 2 into half plus 1, 3 lines. And actually these 3 lines originated from this. And that is expected. That is expected because these are directly bonded. Now, you also remember one statement I made just some time back. The hyperfine and super hyperfine is a function of the mode of interactions and the degree of interactions between the electronic center and the nuclear center. Am I right? That means, in other words, in a much more physical sense, I should put in the way inorganic chemist prefers to put it, that how the electron density is being diffused onto the nuclear spin. That is the manifestation wise reflected in your A value or in your spreading pattern, right? So this is the direct mode. So naturally that interaction would be stronger than any other interaction. That's why 3 lines. And then there are 2 options. One option is nearby carbon, it cannot participate in any interaction, forget it. Now these can extend up to the 3 atom interaction. So in our NMR spectrum, you must have learned by now the orthocoupling, metacoupling. Orthocoupling is much stronger than the metacoupling. Na? Metacoupling, many times you see it as a small shoulder or small splitting here and there in the chemical shield. But orthocoupling is a straight away clear-cut lines, doublet, triplet, quartet, whatever you consider it in NMR. The same thing is also applicable over here, right? So there it's what your nuclear spin is interacting in the electron density of the nearby atom. And here it is the reverse one. Electron spin is interacting with the nearby nuclear spin. So understanding is same, but the mode is different. Okay, but EPR is more sensitive because it is using much higher energy containing microwave compared to the radio frequency in the NMR scale. So 3 lines, if I consider nitrogen, that means you should expect to each line would be split into 3 lines, right? Nitrogen 2 into 1 into 1 plus 1, that means 3 lines. So 9 lines. But you can see the 3 lines are being split more than 3 lines. Am I right? each line is splitted now more than 3 lines. That means not only this nitrogen is involved, these 2 hydrogens are also involved. Because if you involve these 2 hydrogens in another 3 lines, that means each 3 line would now be splitted into 3 into 3. 3 and this 3. So 9 lines. Actually, if you do the simulation, you'll be getting the 9 lines are there. 9 lines are essentially there. So that means this is very interesting that one bond interaction is guaranteed for EPR hyperpine or super hyperpine or super hyperpine you consider. One bond gap interaction is guaranteed. 3 bond interaction is not granted. It may happen, it may not happen. Now, if it happens, well and good. If it doesn't happen, then we have 2 answers. One is that molecular structure is such that did not allow the electron to go beyond the 1 bond or 1.5 bonds. It cannot reach over there because of the structural constraints, because of whatever it might be. Or your instrument resolution is not good enough to have that sort of secondary, tertiary interactions. So both way you have to interpret. Now another molecule, as I told you that I have picked up the molecules which are very selective to understand certain aspect in a separate fashion. Now this molecule, if you look at that, electron is here, so naturally H2 is there, directly bonded. So you can expect to have 3 line spectrum. Sorry, 2 line spectrum. 2H2, na? 2 into 2 into 2 into 2 into half plus 1. So basically 2 line spectrum. You see how many lines? You cannot count. Countless number of lines you are getting. Well, I'm a little bit more sympathetic about this molecule. I assume that this electron is being diffused into this region. Then you can have 5, right? 5 means 2 into 5 into a half plus 1. That means what is the 6 lines, right? Am I right? 2 into 5 into half, 6 lines. So 6 into this 2, this 3 actually, no? 2 into 2, 6 into this 3, 18 lines. But it is much more than 18 lines. That means what I could anticipate in the beginning, the electron can couple naturally over here 3 lines, and then in an extended form, it could also, one could easily anticipate that this electron could be diffused into the benzene ring, and that could lead us to another into 6. That means 18 lines total, but it is much higher than the 18 lines. How it is so? Very difficult question at one point of time. Then people have come up with the reasonable interpretation and the experimental simulation fact that this molecule can have, you see that 1, 2, 3, 4 resonating form, right? And because of the resonating form, at one point in time, this electron is here, then ortho, then para, then meta. So if you consider 3 into 18, okay, each form having 18 type, then you will see that this coming close. And then you can back calculate that which out of this you can see that this is ortho, this is para, this is meta with respect to this one, meta. Now which coupling is stronger? How to figure it out which coupling is stronger? Then you have to calculate the A for ortho coupled, A for para coupled, A for meta coupled. A means already we have talked about how to calculate the A. We have already talked about. And that humanly you cannot do it out of this spectrum. But in a simulation pattern will give you that this A for this A for this, for this A for this. You have to do a lot of computational thing. And then you will see in a very natural way, which is chemically viable also, that para is greater than ortho, greater than meta. That is chemically also very reasonable. Now, if you go to naphthalene, this is another interesting issue. That if you consider that this ring is, this unpaired electron is being diffused between the 2 rings. Okay, possible. And in that case, the naphthalene radical, you can expect to have total 8 equivalence proton. That means you should expect 9 lines. But you are getting much more than 9 lines. That means they are not diffusing in an equivalent sense. That means it is localized on a particular ring. So if it is localized on a particular ring, then you have to use 2Ni plus 1 into 2Mi plus 1. That means 2 into 4, 4 is there, into half plus 1, that means 5. And for this one, another set, 2 into 4 into 1, half plus 1, another 5. So 25 lines. And I just checked it, it is very close to the 25. Very close. But here again, 25 lines you will not get it. If I calculate it, count it, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 maximum. So we have to have that patience. Okay. That, sometimes, if you talk to one kid, chota bacha ke saath, I need this thing. They don't understand whether it is possible or not. Nah? They may sometimes look by a moon. Once they see the moon, they may want to hold the moon in hand. But that is the baby, the way they speak, the way they think. Okay. But it is impossible, right? So similarly over here, I'm giving this example to understand in a better way. When you deal with the EPR, you have to be very, very reasonable person. And you have to be very patient. That you have not got 25, you have not got 9 lines, you are getting 21 lines. You are either you are not happy with the 9 nor with the 21. Then where do you stand? You stand the machine is wrong, all bullshit. No, all not bullshit. It gives you the impression. It gives you the impression that this unpaired electron is not delocalized throughout the fused 2 rings. It is localized more in one particular ring, and then it is being interacting with the other nearby ring. And here your expected line is 25, but somehow your instrument did not allow you to reach to that point because of the lack of resolution aspect. So you are getting 21. That is the common observation whenever, whoever using EPR spectroscopy for their study. Okay, so keep that thing in mind all the time. Now, this is again textbook example. Very nice. You should not have any complaint. You look at that this case, unpaired electron is on the oxygen, and oxygen 16 does not carry any your nuclear spin. So both the oxygen are equivalent now, and both are inactive. So it doesn't matter whether you are putting here or putting there. Doesn't matter. Well, it will only interact with these 4 hydrogens, and as a result, you will be getting total 5 lines, and you are getting 5 lines with a particular intensity that you can see the chart what I have provided you earlier. So here the point is, if you do it at room temperature, you will be getting this spectrum, single line, where the radical is there. So that's why I'm telling you that low temperature is mandatory in order to have this. If you do this spectrum over at room temperature, and if you stop your experiment, then is a one-line spectrum. This is the radical is formed. So that's the incomplete story about the EPR of this molecule. Okay, so as soon as you go down to the lower temperature, you are getting 5-line spectrum. Now you can say that this electron is now in the interactive mode with the nuclear spin of these 4 hydrogens, and they are all equivalent. Okay, first point. And second point also, you can also see that resolution. This X means small resolution for carbon 13. Very nice. And this example, you can see there are 2 ways to handle this example. Now, if I consider this is the molecule, this is solid state structure. Okay, crystal structure is known. Simple organic molecule. I'm not talking about inorganic so far. Now, if you look at this molecule, you will see that oxygen radical is here, right? And this is I equal to 0, inactive. So if I consider this localized structure, then we can have only interaction with the nitrogen, then we should expect 3 lines. Na? 2 into 1 into 1 plus 1, 3 lines. But experimentally we are getting 5 lines with a particular intensity. Okay, what does it mean? Means that this resonating form is operational. That means that one time you can consider radical here, other time you can consider radical here. These two are resonating form. Now we know that. That means EPR time scale. This is very important. You know, spectroscopy is always guided by its own time scale. So if you cannot trap anything, that means that phenomena is beyond the time scale, detection time scale of that instrument. Okay, if the things is much faster, whatever the phenomena you consider, resonating, tautomerism, whatever it is there, hydrogen bonding, transfer, these, that, if that takes place faster than the instrument lifetime, then naturally instrument cannot fix it. For example, if you take your finger and if you slowly move it in front of your eyes, you could easily see that your finger is moving. But if you do it very fast, you will see nothing. You will see something is just oscillating in front of you. You will never see your finger. The reason is eye has its own limitations. Okay, so it depends on the time scale. So EPR time scale is such that sometimes for some molecules it can detect, some molecules it cannot detect. That is not the fault of the instrument. That is not the fault of the discovery. The fault is not fault. In otherwise, that is the nature of that molecule, which oscillates, which vibrates, which this or that faster time scale than the machine's time scale. So that is how, you know, 2 nitrogens are equivalent. If 2 nitrogens are equivalent, then 2 into 2 into 1 plus 1 you have to put in. Then 5 lines, and that is being resolved over here. Now, one more small thing I thought to share with you. That is very important, that if you take this molecule, now this molecule is a simple molecule. It's a pyrazine. You know that pyrazine, na? And radical is inside the ring. Pyrazine radical, very well-known radical, and reasonably stable radical. Not too stable, but reasonable. And then, if you record the EPR using a good machine, if you use a normal machine, you will be getting 1 line spectrum, or hardly 5 line spectrum. That's it. Nothing more than that. But if you use a good machine, you will be getting a spectrum like this. Okay. And you will be getting around 25 lines. Now, these 25 lines, intensity is very well defined. I have not written over here, but you can see in any book or, you know, if you wish, in a website, internet, you will be seeing that these are very well defined intensities are there. Okay. Now, then you can, just for your understanding, that you can easily understand that how the lines are being developed over here. And that is the principle which is applicable to all the cases where you are talking about hyperfine and superhyperfine. But this is one of the cases I thought to highlight so that you can carry this concept for your better understanding of other molecules. Because this is a simple molecule in that sense. Now, what happened first? Now, question is hyperfines or super hyperfine particularly, which would be stronger, as I told you already. It depends on the size of the atom concerned. If the size of the atom is bigger, that participates first compared to the other thing. And also the which number of bond it is. Because nitrogen can also interact first or hydrogen can also interact first. But here hydrogen will never interact first before nitrogen with this electron because of the 2 reasons. You know, this is the ideal molecule I said. Na? One is nitrogen is bigger than hydrogen. Second is nitrogen is directly linked to this particular unpaired electron. Hydrogen is 1 atom distance, right? So it cannot come before this one. So as a result, what will happen, the carbon is directly related, but carbon is useless in that sense. It will only give you noises, right? So I'm not considering carbon that way. So the first one is that it will give you the 5 lines. How it will give you the 5 lines? You can see it, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that means these 2 nitrogen are interacting. Then there are 4 equivalent protons. That means 2 into 4 into half plus 1. That means it is coming another 5. That means each line will now be split into 5 with a particular ratio. And what will be the eventual ratio? This multiplied by this multiplied by this multiplied by this. The maximum would be 3, 12, 18, 12 and 1. So you need not to keep everything in mind. The order is very simple. You see that 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. Every case. That means it goes maximum and then it repeats and comes back to the original position. Okay. So this will be multiplied. This will be multiplied. This will, that's why it goes like this. And then you will be getting component for each. 1, 4, 6, 4, 1, 1 component. Then 2, 8, 12, 8, 2 component. Then 3, 12, 18, 12, 18, 12, and then 3, and then reverse back. That's why it goes like this and then comes down like this. Okay, so a beautiful example. Now, this is one example where you can see it, that simulation thing. Simulation, that program is available. If you are interested, you can just go through the internet. This program is available. Now, if you look at this molecule, you see that solid line is the experimental one and dotted line is the simulation one. You see 1:1 correspondences. That means if you understand well, a simulation means computer is a robot. Nah? You have to give the input. If your input is proper and your instrument resolution is proper, it will be 1:1, whatever way complexity is there. Okay. So this molecule, if you look at this nitrogen, then you should expect only your 2 into 1 into 1 plus 1, 3 lines, right? But how many lines you are getting? Around 27 lines are there. So how do you now figure it out, this 27 lines? You can imagine that this nitrogen is directly attached to this. So if you consider this nitrogen is a 1 bond only, so 9 lines, another 3 lines, 9, still not fitting. Then you can consider this nitrogen, of course it is in the meta position. Okay, the 2 bonds are there in between. This is direct, this is indirect. And then another nitrogen, if you consider, that would give you 27. Okay, I'm not considering this carbon and hydrogen because it is again 1 bond and that will be weak. Now one could argue that these 3 hydrogens would probably interacting over here, but simulation suggests this thing that 1, 2, and if you calculate it, around 27 lines are there. So that tells you this is the mode of interaction. The interacting zone is this one. Now one could argue why you are not considering this hydrogen. Okay, this is not far away with respect to this one. I am not considering because if it is due to the hydrogen coupling, then hyperfine constant value would be smaller than the nitrogen containing hyperfine smaller. As I said, the hyperfine constant or super hyperfine here, super hyperfine depends on the atom size. And if you are experienced enough and if you see the literature, you will see nitrogen hyperfine, it can go from 10 to 30 Gauss. And hydrogen hyperfine normally goes in between 1 to 10. Okay. So if you have a good spectrum, good simulation, it will tell you the A value also. Okay. The super hyperfine constant value. And from that, you can make a bigger picture. That yes, this is not the mode of interaction. Mode of interaction between these 3 nitrogen, which gives you this one. Now, similarly, if you consider this molecule, you'll be getting that. I think this is the last molecule I should consider it today. Yeah. So, if you consider this molecule, this is also interesting molecule. The reason is, you see that this one would give you, this is a direct bond, right? Now, this direct bond would give you doublet, and this is indirect bond. So the each doublet would be split. Now, what I said, the hyperfine constant. You see that first these 2 lines should be created, right? This is the direct interactions, 2 lines. And if you see that hyperfine constant, that is the gap between these 2, is 1.7 millitesla. Okay. But on the other hand, this each line is being now splitted further by this proton, right? And this is 1 bond away, and here you can see the splitting hyperfine constant is 0.26 MT. So almost almost how many times?
Excuse me, sir?
Yeah. Hello.
Sir, we have another class.
Yeah, this is the last slide. Yeah. So, so this is how one should understand. Okay. Have a nice time. Chalo, thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
of you want to say anything? Okay. Remember, I want to take a class on 5th, on the day of Diwali, if you do not disagree. Okay. So I'm finishing it here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I close down?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you'll be getting the slides and the videos in the evening. Okay. So last time you got the videos and PPT, right? Hello.
Yes, sir, we got from Vimel.
This time also, every day you'll be getting it. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Chalo. All the best. Have a nice day. Take care.
Thank you.